Well, for years, I just focused on hot yoga and I did like only hot yoga. At first, that was amazing. It felt awesome. But over the years, I started to create muscular imbalances of which yoga simply could not address. And for example, in yoga, you typically will create strong quadriceps but weak, loose hamstrings. And when you have that imbalance, that usually leads to knee problems.
That's Christian Bates of Longevity Power, and you are listening to the Pure Joy Podcast. Welcome. I'm Elena Love, and you are listening to the Pure Joy Podcast. Today, I have Christian Bates of Longevity Power, and we're going to be talking about longevity herbs and adaptogens. Welcome, Christian.
Hey, Elena. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have heard about maybe adaptogens. Some people don't know what that word means. They've heard about longevity. Of course, we've heard about longevity herbs and things you can do to lengthen your life. But do you want to tell us a little bit about longevity power and longevity herbs and a little bit about what it is?
Well, I mean, my journey started like way long ago when I was 15. I'm 33 now, and I just lost 50 excess pounds in 6 months, just biking and laying off my favorite comfort food, San Francisco sourdough baguettes. And I proved to myself that a few things done well and focused can have amazing results. And so I only got more and more into health, nutrition, fitness since then. And I eventually stumbled on veganism and raw foodism, and that led me down kind of a dead end. Although I learned so much about nutrition then, I got so into organic quality control, and I stumbled upon adaptogens, which are like a missing food group. These are herbs and superfoods that allow your cells to thrive amid stress. They have all kinds of compounds that make your body do better even when it's suffering. So if you're tired, it might pick you up, or if you're tired and you need to rest, it might allow you to get a deeper night's rest. And these are all kinds of medicinal mushrooms and roots and berries and barks and leaves from all around the world. And we can make extracts of them now and take them in different combinations to achieve better health and higher performance.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it all so fascinating. I love the whole concept of adaptogens and that there's, I tell people this a lot. They're like, what should I start with? I'm like, it doesn't really matter what you start with. Everything works. Like everything has a purpose, and you kind of sometimes can find the one that you really feel like works. So I think it's a lot of times it's just an experiment, right? Like all of us do. We're like, let me try this, let me try that. But so what has your experience been? Because I know you love the mushrooms, like the chaga and the reishi. And what's been your experience with all these different formulas?
Well, in my experience, the more the better. There are so many, and I love to try them all and stick with the ones that I really feel like I thrive on. Adaptogens have also been kind of like a gateway herb to bettering the rest of my diet. So the more I got into these things, the more I realized I could get nutrition out of things that weren't raw vegan, because most herbs are actually hot water extracts.
I remember when we learned that, because like you and I were kind of in the same camp in the beginning. That's how I met you, following David Wolfe, going to the retreats. Everybody was 100% raw. And if you weren't, you didn't talk about it. And even some people were to the point where they wouldn't even drink hot tea. And I did that for a while. I'm like, I'm just going to not even drink hot tea. And then when we started learning about, you actually have to cook mushrooms to get the value, like everything started to change the more we all kind of, it seemed like a lot of us got educated as a group together, like, oh, you don't have to be 100% raw to be healthy.
Yeah, it was an interesting kind of shift of an era where we were gradually letting go of that like old 80s and 90s propaganda against saturated fat and cholesterol, and actually understanding all the benefits of a more paleo type approach.
What I call it is just more balanced in the end, like finding what works for you versus sticking to a dogma for the sake of belonging to a group or a club or doing what you quote unquote feel is right, finding what actually works for your body for you to thrive.
I really had to change my diet. I was getting more information where intellectually I thought it would be a better idea to try all these omnivorous foods. But ultimately, I ran into issues. I mean, I felt at the time that I had the best health ever on a vegan diet. Although when I look back on it, my standard was much lower than it is now. And I actually developed sensitivities to sugar, so I like went gradually lower and lower glycemic over the years. Like first I had to let go of agave nectar, then I had to let go of dried fruit, then eventually pretty much all other sweeteners. And then I started to didn't know at the time what a keto diet was. I entered into ketosis without realizing that was a thing.
That you had done it. Right, me too. I mean, we kinda learned from, like, Gabriel Cousens, or I did anyway, about, like, I have the whole time I was doing raw, I was doing low glycemic for the most part. But yeah, then the ketogenic kinda came along and coined that phrase, but we none of us really knew, or those of us who were doing it, that was actually ketogenic at the time.
I started to have more and more of a autoimmune protocol type diet where I was avoiding certain seeds and nightshades and things with lectins, and now that's a more well established thing, even though it's also been around for a while, both nutritionally and medically.
Why did you do the autoimmune?
I never thought I had autoimmune. I'm still not sure if I do. It just might be my genetic tissue type that is going to thrive on more, meat and vegetables than seeds and sweeteners. I would love to be able to hack my way back to almonds, but right now they don't make me feel good. I would love to like be able to eat anything and be healthy one day, but I don't really miss anything except for cacao and like healthy ice creams. Those are the only things I haven't been able to like properly replace.
No, but I get it because we all can become sensitive. Like, I became sensitive to nuts because I was eating so many of them in my diet that I had to really cut back, and now I've kind of gotten to a place where I'll eat them occasionally, but if you just completely flood your diet with one thing, I think that's why so many people have so many issues with grains is we've just been brought up on them, and there's so many in the American diet that it's just like, "Nah, doesn't really work for me anymore."
Oh, I definitely like flooded my body with a half gallon of almond milk a day.
Tell me more about, like, the medicinal mushrooms and the chaga and the reishi, because those, I think a lot of people have heard of them, and, I get a lot of customers asking, "What's chaga?" And I'll explain it to them, but I know you have a lot of knowledge on this, so we'd love to hear from you, like, the depths of how these actually work.
Well, medicinal mushrooms have these marker compounds, we usually call them human active marker compounds, things like polysaccharides, triterpenes, and these things have an immunological effect. They have an adaptogenic effect, meaning they basically give you sustained energy, but they're not stimulants. They have antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial effects. They seem to have cognitive benefits. There's a mushroom called lion's mane that is particularly notable for helping your nervous system. And they just make you feel really good, especially when you get a good, strong quality extract and in the right dosage. Like it gives you this nice mood lift. What really brings me so much passion and joy with nutrition is that not only do I want to be health and not only do I want to pass that health on, but I feel like it's giving me like this greater sense of reality and clarity of just being human. And it just totally thrills me. Like I feel like every time I can redefine, like, or rather just perfect my protocol for what my body needs today, I feel like I just love it so much.
So, like, you notice when you take certain things, like, I know for me, when I take lion's mane, I notice that my brain, I just have better cognition. I just feel like more energy that day, happier in general. Do you have certain ones that, like, you've taken and you notice a certain, like, what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, with lion's mane, you tend to like lion's mane does have some initial effects that kind of vary. Sometimes it'll make you really want to focus and be happy, and sometimes it'll be more mellow than that. But there's going to be also long term effects, which is I think where the real wisdom of adaptogens happens. Is that you're not just taking them for that 6 to 12 hours of energy, but you're taking it so that on the days that you don't take them, your body still retains those benefits, and in that way they're non-addictive and non-habit forming and truly nutritive. With reishi, for example, reishi is probably the average like favorite mushroom across the planet. It has so much research behind it. It's a top herb in Chinese medicine. It gives you this real sense of like serene feeling. It gives you this sense of calm. If you take a lot, it's very relaxing. But if you take like a small or medium amount, it just gives you so much energy. If you take enough adaptogens, they like end up calming you down. Your body's just like, all right, let me absorb this for a while.
Let me process this. So, have you, I'm sure that as you've been taking them, you've been able to take more. Does your body kind of like adapt to how much you're taking and balance you out eventually?
I think that some people, when they start, if they have a sensitive stomach or have gut issues, they just won't be able to handle that much. Adaptogens are generally much more gentle than like all other herbs. So most herbs are not adaptogens. They're herbs that are more drug-like. Like they, you can't take them all the time. Like they might be an immune stimulant, where if you take it too much, it could actually make your immune system go awry.
And what would be an example of that?
Garlic, like a little bit of garlic, it has tonic effects, but a lot that might actually upset your microbiome.
I agree with that because I had a roommate once that made me raw garlic mashed potatoes, like they were made with cauliflower, and I ate them right before bed, and I did not sleep all night because of the stimulation of it. And I mean, it had so much garlic in it.
Yeah, and if someone really feels that they need a lot of garlic, they can do aged garlic extract. This gently fermented garlic, where it doesn't have the harsh nature that that spiciness that the allium family has. I love onions, but if I have raw onions on an empty stomach, it will immediately hurt.
So garlic would be an example of something you don't want to overdose on. But then, like, yeah, the adaptogenic herbs, things like licorice. I mean, there's so many of them. What are some of your favorites?
All the top tonic herbs from Chinese medicine are some of my favorites. Astragalus, goji berry extract, all those medicinal mushrooms like reishi, shiitake, maitake, and then moving west of that, we have Ayurvedic medicine from India. So things like shilajit, ashwagandha root. There are so many. I mean, I could keep.
Yeah, you could keep going forever.
Yeah, like I have one product that has 41 adaptogen extracts in it, so that you can really get the best of the best from all around the world without having to buy and figure out what these 41 herbs are.
Everything. Is that the longevity power?
Yeah, longevity in a bottle.
Longevity in a bottle. That's the one that I take every day. I put it in my coffee or my tea or my smoothie. I don't know exactly what it's doing, but I feel good when I take it. So it's like whatever adaptogen I need or whatever, herb or root I need, I'm getting something from that.
Exactly. Like there are some people who really like to keep their herbal protocol simple and just work with a couple of herbs at a time. And there's definitely merit for that in Chinese medicine. That might be depending on your constitution and how you want to balance your body. You might need to be more simple than that. But often, in my experience, taking a synergy of herbs where they biopotentiate each other, that can get you greater results faster.
And how did you kind of come up with doing this? Like, did you start with certain ones and then you just kept adding more in?
I started with going to Chinatown and just buying these mostly probably swaggy herbs that probably had like sulfur sprayed on them or worse, and making decoctions or long brewed teas out of them. And so that was fun at first. Like I started to feel the benefits a little bit. And then I started to buy a lot of mushroom mycelium. And with mushroom mycelium, it's like the weakest version of a medicinal mushroom, way weaker than various extracts of mushrooms. So you have to take a lot. So I bought a lot and just ate a lot. And then over time, I realized that that wasn't nearly as potent as it got. And so I started to buy a different fruiting body of mushroom extracts. And then soon after that, I tried many other products and started to figure out how to source these herbs from around the world. And then I launched my business, Longevity Power.
I know that some companies, not yours, just sell you ground up reishi powder and they're like, it's reishi. And people don't really understand that you need to know, you need to extract this. So there's two ways that I know of to extract, which is one is alcohol and one is like cooking into a decoction. So what is your favorite way to do it? Or like, what's the difference between those two?
With usually when you buy an extract powder, it's going through kind of an extra technologically backed process where it's like a really advanced decoction or a really advanced tincture, where you're actually putting it in a giant vat with pressure adjustments, and you're getting it like exactly just below boiling, whereas boiling might be like too hot and start to destroy active compounds. And then instead of sending it through a metal mesh like we would with making tea, it goes through a membrane, and then that membrane can get the fraction you want so that you're getting less inactive ingredients and more of the active ingredients, a water soluble powder.
Right. So those are basically what we're getting in the powders is a tea that's been dried down. So there's no like actual pieces of like say reishi mushroom or chaga in the powder. It's all just the tea of it that's been dried down.
Yes, that, but more powerful than your typical tea.
Because of the way that it's done.
Right, because it's actually like you're really pressing the stuff out the way you would with a tincture. But with a tincture, you're paying for alcohol mostly. So tinctures tend to be weak, and I feel like there's a dosage issue with certain tinctures.
Oh, right. Because if you take 3 droppers, you're getting alcohol. If you don't drink, that's like a shot.
Certain tinctures that are great, like you want to have that sublingual absorption, your antler extract. You want to have that stuff go directly into your blood without getting destroyed by your stomach as much as is possible. Whereas with the powders, I mean, some powders you can put in your mouth, or you'll get some sublingual absorption when you put them in food or make an elixir out of them. So I think it's always a case by case basis of like what's the best version of this herb for the individual.
Because it can get confusing for most people that are just getting curious. Because I know a lot of companies now have been popping up with like their teas that are, you know, chaga tea and like instant teas and things like that. And people that are just like, I've heard that medicinal mushrooms are good or that adaptogens are good. They're like, well, how do I know what to do and where to start and where to, like, it can be confusing. It can be a little overwhelming for most people, I think.
And like we have, you know, information overload and so many products to choose from these days. So I just try to make it simple for people. Like, here's the most important things to do now, and here are the funnest ways to do them.
And so your favorite way is just to use the powders and put it into your food.
My favorite way is to make an elixir in the morning.
Yeah, I saw that elixir recipe on your website. That looks so good.
Yeah, I mean, and I sweeten it with stevia, so it's just delicious. It's like having a soda or sweetened tea. And some of these flavors coming off of these adaptogens have very similar overtones of chocolate and coffee and malt. And so you end up potentially with a really delicious elixir. I mean, you can also make these elixirs kind of gross and floral and bitter, but I've just began to develop over the years a taste for more bitters and for more floral flavors. And so having that like really full like mouth feel effect of an elixir is just great. And then instead of drinking that elixir, like I'll make at least a quart, sometimes a half gallon, and I might drink half of it right away, but then I'll sip the rest of it for many hours afterwards so that I'm taking adaptogens, basically taking my supplements and hydrating throughout the day.
I like what you said about like the taste, acquiring the taste, because I've found that too over the years. We all want things to taste sweet. I mean, that's why there's such a sugar addiction in our culture. And we all want things, you know, to taste a certain way. But to truly taste an herb on your tongue versus taking it in capsule form, for your tongue to get the information first so that it can send your brain the message of like, this is what is coming in. I just think there's a lot of power in that, like to actually tasting the food versus always trying to mask it with other things or shove it into tablets or capsules.
I think there are a lot of supplements and herbs that are in capsule form for not that good of a reason. I mean, capsules can be very convenient, but unless the supplement tastes really bad, you might as well keep it as a powder and make something out of it.
Exactly. I feel that way about maca. I adore maca. I love the maltiness of it. And I can't imagine taking it as a capsule. I'm like, no, I want to taste it. It tastes like, to me, it reminds me of malted milk from when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's like a tragedy to just block that flavor off from you.
It'd be like taking chocolate in capsules. I mean, that's ridiculous, but
People do that.
it's like, I just want the benefits. I don't want to taste it. But I mean, it's everybody's right. But I agree with you that like when we start tasting these medicinal foods, that can take up the energy of where we've gone snacking, looking for a certain flavor or taste, or just feeling like I want to get satisfied. But like when we're tasting these herbs, like that gives you satisfaction on it. It sends your brain a signal. It's happened to me where it's like, no, I'm not hungry for anything. I'm so nourished. But if you take it in capsule form, you're not going to get that satiation feel. I'll definitely put your that recipe that you have on your website on our show notes so people can try your longevity recipe.
You can add these to your smoothie, of course. You can make all kinds of shakes and desserts. If you're making like a healthy ice cream, definitely herbs should go in there. Basically anything on the sweet side of the category of recipes. With savory foods, you can try to mix adaptogens into your recipes, but I usually don't bother, and then I just stick with spices and herbs that are considered savory and that have long benefits anyway.
Things like ginger and coriander powder.
Exactly.
I like the idea of putting it into an ice cream. I make a coconut cream ice cream and I sweeten it with stevia, put lots of fat in it. And I think it would be good to put some adaptogens in that, especially things like maca, but even the mushroom powder would probably be pretty good in there.
Oh, definitely. The mushroom powder goes great with anything chocolatey. Same with the maca. If you want more of a berry flavor, you could use goji berry extract. If you're going for like more of a butterscotch flavor, you could use one of my favorite herbs, which I call levity. It's organic red asparagus root extract, which is completely different from your asparagus vegetable. This is a different species, same genus, and it's a root extract. It's a Chinese tonic herb, and it kind of has this kava-like effect where you can almost feel it's naturally sweet. It tastes like butterscotch with like this tingliness when you put it straight on your tongue. And those are the asparagosides, and they give you this sense of levity.
Oh, I got to try that one. I've tried a lot of your products, but I haven't tried that one. That sounds good.
Yeah, I usually don't take it. I'll take small amounts during the day, and then in the evening, I'll usually megadose, and then I'm just like super chill all evening.
My favorite of yours, well, I love the longevity in a bottle, but I also love the glow, which is the Hoshu Wu. Can you talk a little bit about Hoshu Wu? Because I think it's a really important herb or root.
It's a prepared root extract from the Chinese tonic herb tradition. It has all these benefits. The main benefits come from its antioxidant profile. It has antioxidants that are very similar to resveratrol. So they're very cell protective. It's just so good for nourishing your body. In Chinese medicine, it's considered nourishing your Jing and Shen. It also is an MAOI, so it's a natural mood lifter and social lubricant. It's really great for restoring sexual health, but it's yin, so it's kind of like perfect balance to maca. So maca is like very yang and warming, and it's like the ultimate pre-workout tonic where you take maca and you just want to use that energy up. Whereas Hoshu Wu is more restorative, but it still gives you this long burning energy. So if you combine those two in an elixir or an ice cream or a shake or whatever, you should have an amazing initial benefit of awesome energy, and then long-term youthening, longevity promoting, endocrine system balancing effects.
That's awesome. Those two together. Okay, cool. I like both of those. Also, with the Hoshu Wu, it's kind of like its claim to fame, from what I know from China, is that it kind of reverses gray hair.
Well, I guess I get asked that so much. Like, in your professional opinion, does it really do that?
Does it do that? Yeah.
And if it truly easily did, then we would already know about it. I think the problem with trying to stop or even maybe reverse gray hair is that everyone's follicles are graying because of their own individual set of reasons. So there could be different stressors, maybe a different load of heavy metals, a different hormone imbalance, different deficiencies in nutrients. And so if someone truly wants to defy the common notion that gray hair is not reversible, I think it must be reversible.
I've seen it reverse on people, actually. Not fully, but I've definitely seen people's hair get darker, and mine as well. I mean, mine wasn't gray when I started in raw foods, and I definitely have gray hair now. But I think when we mineralize our bodies and when we nourish our cells, like we're less likely to have as much gray. I don't think it's completely reversible.
We'll see. There's not enough. Like, I have also have so many anecdotal references to how we can reverse gray hair, but scientifically, it's really tough to say.
But I would definitely say taking a longevity formula or something couldn't hurt.
Right. It could be a vital puzzle piece to the equation. So if someone were to combine Ho Shou Wu and an amazing diet and then get like blood work and like hair testing done to see what their hormones and heavy metals are like, and then continue to upgrade their diet based on that information, and maybe do other forms of super nourishing and biohacking and fitness. And I mean, there's so many things out there that will probably help.
It's so individual for everyone, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about these today, because I feel like even if someone's listening right now going, "Oh my god, like where do I even start?" I think just having the information, putting it in your consciousness, and then for me what happens is things just come into my field. Suddenly I started learning about your longevity formula because I don't even know how long you've been promoting it, but I think I got it when you first started, and I've been taking it ever since. And I mean, you just kind of feel naturally drawn to certain things. Good place to start is just to start.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do in a day, and there's only so much you can learn all at once. If someone feels really healthy, then I think they should just maybe replace a food that no longer serves them with something better at least once a week, and then just be really consistent with that. If someone has some serious health issues, they may need to more rapidly go on an elimination diet.
Be a little more aggressive.
Yeah, like for at least a month. And then once they're kind of back to baseline where they don't have autoimmune symptoms and the like, then they can start to add in foods and see which foods they can get away with.
If you were telling someone, "Hey, okay, you've got cancer, you've got autoimmune," like what would you tell them to eliminate? I know I would tell them to eliminate all forms of wheat and grains and sugar. What else would you recommend people eliminate?
It depends on what they will do. If someone's if I think someone is truly capable of like going to a stricter, almost carnivorous ketogenic diet right away, then I would recommend that. If that's not going to happen, then I would say yeah, at least go gluten free. And then there's everything in between. So also, and if you can easily go gluten free, then also go dairy free. If you can easily do that, then start eliminating nightshades and seeds, and then also, of course, continue to improve the sources of meat that you're getting and diversify your meat. So not just lean meats, but make sure it's all truly grass fed if it's red meat, if not wild meat if you're a hunter, and or wild meat in the case of fish being wild, and get a diversity. So get different animal fats, try organ meats, try collagen things like bone broth, and just fill up your plate with all of that really dense, satiating food, so that there's no room for bread. Healthfully greased up vegetables.
Well, that's what I teach a ketogenic course. Actually, we do a plant-based ketogenic course for people that want to stay on mainly plants. I never tell people they have to be only on plants. But I always tell people, like, if you're trying to get off the sugar, if you're trying to get off the grains, satisfy yourself with these fatty foods, like you're saying, like healthy fats and lots of vegetables, and make sure you're getting the nutrition, because then you don't crave the bad foods either. So if you are going to tell someone to eliminate something, I would agree, like they need to have something to replace it with, not just be like, you can't have this anymore, because that never works.
Oh no, it definitely doesn't. And also, people need to realize that if they think they're eating a lot of fat, they're not. Like, you probably need to eat even more fat than you think is a lot. Just make sure it's in a form that you can digest easily. Like if you put a giant scoop of cold, hard coconut oil on your plate, that might not be as good as if you kind of melted it and emulsified it with other foods or blended it into some kind of sauce so that it digests really nicely and feels balanced. You usually want sour things with fat. It kind of cuts cuts through the density and makes it just taste better.
That's where you get into the flavor balancing, which is fun as a chef. I know you're a chef too. Like the more you do it, the better you get at it. So get in your kitchen is what we're saying.
Yeah,
Start trying stuff. Yeah.
everything's a salad, or a salad dressing rather, because you want to have that fattiness, the salt, the pungent, the sour, the umami. Even if something doesn't look like a salad at all because it's a totally cooked carnivorous thing, it still kind of has that same flavor balancing.
I know you're also into like fitness. What kind of things do you do to stay in shape?
Well, for years I just focused on hot yoga, and I did like only hot yoga.
I remember that.
And at first that was amazing. It felt awesome. But over the years, I started to create muscular imbalances of which yoga simply could not address. For example, in yoga, you typically will create strong quadriceps but weak, loose hamstrings. And when you have that imbalance, that usually leads to knee problems. As a yoga teacher for a decade, I found that my older yoga students simply did not retain the benefits that yoga claimed. And I started to wonder why. And I started to realize that yoga is not necessarily this cure all panacea, that one has to be quite well rounded with their fitness protocol. So I started to go to the gym starting 6 years ago, and I very quickly, within a year, just totally reversed a lot of the muscular imbalances that I was dealing with. Because in yoga, like you can't really pull with your arms or your legs. Whereas
You're
you
right.
go to the gym, suddenly you can actually train your biceps and hamstrings and glutes properly. And
So you're talking weightlifting.
yeah, so pretty much that's my main practice now is weightlifting. I really love doing short sprints rather than super long distance running. I still love yoga, but I don't actually feel like I used to just relish in that final savasana. I thought it was the best feeling in the world. But I think that the pump after a gym is even better.
They both can be good. So yeah, like a balance. Like anything, like we're talking about balance with food too.
Yeah,
If you just get into one form of fitness, it's not really natural like what humans were naturally designed to only do one type of a fitness, you know.
yeah, like I'm compelled to tell all my super flexible yoga friends at yoga to come to the gym, and then all my stiff, big friends at the
Bodybuilders.
gym, telling them to go to yoga.
I like just climbing big hills and then jumping in cold water, like sweating and then doing like a cold plunge or something after. That's way more invigorating for me than a shavasana, even though I like that from time to time too.
And one thing I've been meaning to get into that I know I'm gonna love, but I just haven't put both feet in, and that is like the move nap type stuff, where you really work on natural movements, which will give you like strength and flexibility in ways that yoga doesn't necessarily give you, or weight training doesn't give you.
You mean like kind of like using body weight, your own body weight?
Yeah, or like crawling on the ground, like doing things that you would have to do as a rewilded human, working on your flat-footed squats, getting all those small muscles to fire correctly,
Crouching and crawling and reaching.
things that a toddler is constantly doing.
Okay, well now I'm going to just take a quick break and I'm going to give my health tip of the week. Today's health tip is about sugar. Did you know that sugar can be more addicting than heroin, according to recent studies on rats? That's pretty crazy, right? So it's probably time to start taking a look at how much sugar you're actually eating. You may need to cut back a little bit or maybe a lot. So here's some ideas on how you can do that. First thing you want to do is start eating whole foods. You don't have to start by eliminating sugar from your diet. Just start by adding healthy things in, like fresh produce. Look for colorful fruits and berries. Especially fruits can be a great sweet treat so that you can go for those instead of the cookies and the unhealthy processed foods that are in the middle of the grocery store. So on that note, you want to avoid the middle of the grocery store as much as possible and just shop around the perimeter of the store where all the fresh food is. Other things you can do is use sugar replacement, like things like stevia. Stevia is a natural plant sweetener, which is 100 times sweeter than sugar. So literally a couple drops of stevia liquid in a beverage, such as like in a soda water with lemon, can make a delicious lemonade. So if you want to get off sugar, the best thing to do is to start replacing your sugar with healthier alternatives. Hope this helps. Have a great day. So now I'm going to go into what I call my lightning round, and I'm going to just ask you a couple questions. The first one is, if you could ask the creator one thing and get a definitive answer, what would it be?
I think that we don't know is like, how does consciousness arise? Like, we can explain physics in so many ways, but the exact nature of like, how is our consciousness centered in our body, and how did it actually arise, and why are we who we are? Like, I would love to understand that mystery for sure.
Okay, so my next question is, are there one or two things that you could ask the audience to start doing today that could make a big improvement in their life?
Replace gluten with healthy fats.
Is there anything you would recommend people read?
I really feel that there's so many experts out there who have a really great picture. I mean, like the Bulletproof Diet, Ben Greenfield. These guys are Mark Sisson. Like, they're really, I think, on the cutting edge in a way that's really approachable, but that's not dogmatic either. Like, it's like strict but open-minded, and I think that's going to work for people in the long run a lot better.
Yeah, so those are 3 different podcasts, and I've listened to all of those as well. So we'll put those in the show notes because I think you're right. They all seem pretty well balanced. They have their opinion, but it's kind of open-ended. Nobody's telling you exactly how you're supposed to do things.
Yeah, and like lately I've been just working behind the scenes of my business. Like, I would love to be a better source of actually write a book one day where I could really lay things out. Although I'm also really hesitant to do that, because I know that even though I do, and this will sound dogmatic, even though I'm really like against dogma, because like I said, having been vegan, having tried all these different diets, I really realized like what doesn't work and what does work for me in particular. I feel that maybe a couple years from now, I'll still agree with almost everything I'm saying now, but I know that 10 years from now, I'll probably cringe at some of the stuff. But that's the
Right.
thing. Like,
yeah. Like when you look back on what you were saying, but I think that's probably typical for any author. I mean, I know I've read my old raw food recipe books. I'm like, oh my gosh, I do everything so differently now. I guess that's what edits are for.
Yeah, I think that the good nutritionists change. So they're constantly trying to prove themselves wrong. And I think in the long run, the only way you can really optimize your diet and lifestyle is if you change it, which is kind of that you're never quite the best, but you're always trying to do your best. But I think it's a really interesting predicament that we're all in.
I think you have a really strong point there. And I've heard this over and over again, that any diet change, even if it's just one small change, usually you'll see results. I think our bodies are designed to adapt and change. So like as nomads or as like original humans, we weren't just sitting in front of a berry bush 24/7. We were wandering around, eating, trying different sticks and roots and boiling things and whatever the heck. You're right about that. Like being constantly willing to adapt and to change. That's great advice.
And I think, speaking of rewilding and a wild food diet, I think that a wild food diet is optimal, but even more optimal than that is what you supplement with, so that you can even more therapeutically charge up your body. And of course, that will have to change as well.
Thank you so much, Christian. This has been really informative, and I know it's just the tip of the iceberg. I think people should definitely check out your website, which is longevitypower.com. How else is a good way for people to try out your products or get a hold of you?
I have a lot of videos and blog on longevitypower.com. You can even look at some of my older things. Like I had a cacao rap music video, although I'm like a different person now from when I did that, but claim to fame on YouTube. And I'm active on Instagram. I have one Instagram account at longevitypower, and that's going to be more about health stuff. And then I have another one, a new one called Christian Bates Fit, and that's going to be more focused on fitness stuff.
So something for everyone. Christian, thank you so much. And I'll put all these notes that you gave me in our show notes so people will have them. And thanks for being on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Elena.
You've been listening to the Pure Joy Podcast, a podcast by Pure Joy Planet. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. Join me next week for another health-inspired conversation. Together, we can build a pure joy life. And as always, I invite you to get in touch with me with any questions or topic requests. I love getting your correspondence. Have an awesome day.